interview, and I was like, oh my god, I have everything written down. It's just been, there's just so many names to keep track of.
I bet.
Okay. Can I, for this audio, can just one go down the line and say everybody's name?
Madison,
Anna,
Tremaine,
Lee,
Michelle,
Katie,
Christy, Sandy.
Okay.
You guys, I'm from the north, so I say you guys, not y'all, and people I don't want to offend. But ladies, thank you all for being here. Like, from the bottom of my heart, it means so much to see all of you. And I know this wasn't easy. Some of you were like yes, and some were like a little on the fence. And I really appreciate you all being here. And know that this is your interview. The ball is in your court. Say what you feel, what comes from the heart, what you want to say. Don't feel like you have to say anything. You know, just know that this is for you, and this is, you don't, I mean, this is for everybody who's watching and all the people who haven't been able to talk yet, but this is also your story, so don't feel like you need to do anything, just speak from the heart, and if you need a break or something like that, just say it, no problem.
Thank you for doing this.
thank you.
Thank you. All
Thank
for being
you.
here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're just starting a wide shot. I just want to get a sense of all the different types of cancer that we're getting. Okay, we have a whole camera dedicated to wide shots. Okay. Can I have the women here who had breast cancer or were diagnosed with breast cancer raise their hand? Breast cancer, so 4. Okay. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Or lymphomas?
Hodgkin's.
Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay, I'm learning. And I'm still trying to figure out the difference. You both have Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay. Lee, you had, what kind of cancer did you have?
Ovarian cancer.
Ovarian. And who am I forgetting?
I had thyroid cancer and soft tissue cancer.
Okay. I'm going to go down the list quickly and Rose and just ask you why, you know, what brought you here, what you want to convey. So I'll start with you, Madison. What brought you here? Why did you decide to talk? This is not an easy topic.
I wanted to be a voice for people who might be too afraid to come forward, that if I could be representation for them.
That's wonderful.
I want some answers. Honestly, one of the things that has racked my mind is when I was diagnosed, the doctor couldn't tell me why I was diagnosed or like why I had cancer. So I would like to know if maybe it was a cause, as well as like push NC State to get those answers as well.
Yeah.
It was very hard for me to be here to talk about this, but I came similar to what we just heard for the people who are no longer here, who if they wanted to speak, they can't, and then the people who really want to, but they're afraid to, and so that's why I'm here.
I came because ovarian cancer does not run in my family, and I wanted answers. I wanted to know why I contracted ovarian cancer. I also wanted to know if it was caused by the carcinogens in POHA.
Yeah. Michelle.
I wanted to be here today to advocate for all those that may not be able to be here. And also there's no breast cancer in my family, and so the cause for concern of what's happening with POHA and everyone that's connected, be able to be a voice and to be all part of the research for that.
Thank you, Katie.
Yep, I'm here also to be a voice. I feel strongly that the university needs pressure to handle this situation swiftly and with a lot of care for the people involved. And I think it's important to be a voice not only for those of us who've been diagnosed with some form of cancer, but all of the other people who work in that building, worked there until November, the people who went to programs in that building who haven't had a cancer diagnosis, who need some answers about what to potentially expect, what kind of preventative measures they could take, what sort of screenings they could do. I think that's going to be really important in all of this.
Yeah. Christy.
I'm here because I was diagnosed with 2 completely separate types of cancer when I was still a student at State. I had already been in PO for probably about 3 years when they started coming, and first with thyroid cancer my junior year, and then with a soft tissue cancer my senior year. And honestly, for the last 12 years, I've thought, what is wrong with me? What was wrong with my body? That it would betray me like that, especially with no cancer in my family whatsoever. And I was very healthy before then. I've been very healthy after leaving PO, but those 2 years are just really dark in my memory. And I think that when I saw the news about PO Hall, I was thinking, maybe I'm not alone, and maybe it wasn't my body betraying me, and maybe there's a cause outside of myself that put me through this, and maybe it's PO.
Yeah, like a light bulb kind of.
Right, it made sense all of a sudden, where it's just a thing that I had just accepted about my life as just a question mark.
Right, and all of you had that question mark.
Yeah.
Why did this happen?
Yeah.
Sandy, why are you?
I had the question mark. Diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years ago and had genetic testing. We even went the extra step to have the testing in it because it doesn't run in my family. And the genetic testing confirmed that it's not genetic. But I'm here today because I know leaders have a lot of good, hard decisions they have to be making over the next years, I'm assuming. And I just want them to see the human element behind all those facts and figures and percentages and information, that there's a human element, that we are staff and that we are alumni and that we're human. And they've got to factor that into the decisions that face them coming in the future.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, right? We know that we at least have this 120, I got another report this morning from somebody, cases of cancer. But what have you heard from the university?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I wrote Chancellor Woodson 2 or 3 days ago. Kudos to him. He replied. He could have easily hidden behind his computer and not done that. My concern is in that email response that I was put to a website that exists. But the only problem is I had no idea that website existed for information until I wrote to the chancellor and he replied. Had he not replied, had I not written, a whole big source of information gone.
What does the website say, or what is it about?
Yeah, I didn't know there was a website.
The website is mainly a summary of the actions that have taken place in the building, when it was closed, plans,
Next steps. kind of
next
thing,
steps. But it's not about people. It's just about the building being closed.
Okay.
Yeah, Michelle, have you received any guidance from the university regarding your cancer diagnosis?
I have not. I did go onto the website, and it mostly just spoke about the closings of PO, the timeline, and being able to find, the students, the classes. But I was trying to find another resource for looking into the connections with sickness and disease that was spoken about, and I didn't find that, and so that's where I turned to when I heard from WRAL when they first wrote the story, but there was no other resources other than PO Hall's closing on the website for NC State.
Yeah, Lee, or Tremaine, yeah.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that I was a graduate student in PO Hall for 2 years and did 2 different stints working in PO Hall, totaling 10 years. And when I was diagnosed at the age of 34 in 2015, I thought, okay, I guess I'm just a lucky few, right? And I did, as others have said, they did the genetic testing and, nothing came back. And I knew 2 other women prior to me that worked in the building that had breast cancer. And I just thought, just 2 other women, that I know in the building that have had breast cancer. And so I didn't think anything about PO Hall. And it really wasn't until, I think around 2020, when there were 2 women at the same time battling breast cancer on the 5th floor where I worked. So they also worked on the 5th floor. And then there was another person in the building I knew that was diagnosed of another cancer. And so then I just started thinking about all the people in this one building that I knew that had had cancer, and I just thought, it just seems weird. And I brought it up to someone, and
Who
just
did you
said,
bring it up to?
I brought it up to someone in leadership, someone that I worked with, and just said, hey, with these recent cases, now I'm starting, like, something just seems weird that in this one building, we're not talking about across campus. We know people get cancer in large numbers, and we're not talking about NC State as a whole. We're talking about this one building, and we can name all of these people. Something just doesn't seem right. And the response was like, yeah. And so when this story broke, I had friends texting me, former colleagues sending me the story, and I wasn't like shocked. There was no like, oh my God. I had none of that. I was not shocked at all. I was just more shocked that it came to light. And I love NC State. I spent majority of my life there. But as we've heard other people say, we're real people, and there are people that work there. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, and it's important that they're paying attention to this.
Some of you, have talked about feeling alone, like feeling like nobody else had what you were dealing with. And now, look at even in this room. What has it been like? What was it like feeling like that you were alone in this? And now it has to be bittersweet in a weird way. I don't know if somebody feels comfortable talking about that. The fact that now you know that you're not alone. Now you know that there are many other women that have cancer like you.
You don't want to wish cancer on anybody.
No.
But there is comfort in numbers. Sharing your experience and talking about it and knowing that somebody's been through what you've been through. Because unless you've had cancer, you don't know how traumatic that experience is and what it's like to lose your hair. And then when it comes back, it's so thin.
She makes it look so good, though.
I know. And then when it comes back, it's so thin. It's you lose your eyebrows. It's just, I think the throwing up. You're nauseous from the chemo and the radiation. Yeah, look at everybody shaking their head. They know what I'm talking about. So unless you've been through it, you can't even imagine what it's like. It's horrific. And so, you don't wish it on anybody, but there's comfort in knowing that somebody's been through the same experience and they understand what you've been through,
So you were going to say something, Julie?
I think any, not just us, but any cancer patient will tell you about the phone call that came.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like getting another phone call to see the story that said, 99 cases related to Poe Hall, breast cancer, cluster, that kind of thing. It was like getting that phone call again.
I started shaking.
I did
when
too.
I started, and I was
My
holding
stomach dropped.
and I was like, I don't know why I'm having this reaction. Like after 12 years since having cancer.
And I came around the corner and I grabbed my husband and I said, the stories are getting scarier. And when I showed him that story, I said to him, my stomach dropped. It was like getting that phone call again. And to your point, there is comfort in knowing, but at the same time, you sit in the waiting room to see your oncologist and you see all the other patients there, and it's like, it's not really comforting.
Right, it's not comforting. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even realize that reaction. It's not, it's an aha maybe, and it's a...
An aha.
But it's also a, oh crap, like it's...
Only I used a different word.
Katie, you're somebody who recently, when was your last chemo round?
I finished chemo at the end of November of 2023, so just a few months ago, and then I just finished radiation this week. So
Good deal.
Just wrapping up.
How are you feeling?
Feeling okay. It's a huge relief to be done, but at the same time, I'm really glad that this story is breaking, but it's kind of I kind of felt like I just finished just in time to now be like re-engaged in a new chapter of all of this. I need the rest, but at the same time, I mean,
And no stress.
this is important. Yeah, and no stress.
The radiation's very tiring.
Yes, radiation is extremely tiring. I really thought radiation, like after chemo, I thought radiation will be a breeze, and it is not.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
And you are waiting right now to find out kind of the status of your health.
Yep, I am. I would like to be given a clean bill of health. I'm hoping that happens. I don't really know. I mean, is someone gonna say to me, you don't have cancer anymore, like you put a check in that box, you're done. I know that with breast cancer oftentimes though it's, I mean, we'll have what, 10 years of follow-up.
Yep.
You know, it's an ongoing thing. It's not, doesn't just get cut off.
Right, yeah, it's always there, back of your head, even if you have that going on.
Yes. Yeah.
Madison, you were a student when you were diagnosed. What was that like?
It was a battle to get diagnosed, honestly. It was all through the health center at NC State. I started feeling fatigued, extreme fatigue in fall. It made going to classes really difficult. I went there. They sent me to a hematologist that said I had an anemia. And then I went back to the health center and just several symptoms, chest cramps, ended up being enlarged lymph nodes. But it was just a very struggle to get diagnosed. I felt lazy. I felt like maybe it was my fault. Like it was a moral deficiency that I wasn't able to keep up with homework or tests or sorority activities. But getting that diagnosis, like, okay, it's not my fault. It's something beyond my control.
Yeah, and you're sitting next to a woman who was also a student, had the same diagnosis as you. What is it like to meet each other?
Right before the interview started, we were like going like, so what were you diagnosed as? And just like going through the very like typical, not typical because I've never had these questions before, but I think like basic questions of like how was it for you? But I did kind of find comfort in that. It's like, oh wow, just because being young and having cancer, maybe it's becoming more common, I don't really know, but yeah, it was comforting, but then again, like, I know it sucked, so I'm sorry for that.
Christy, you said that we talked on the phone yesterday and you were saying how difficult it was. You were student teaching and then also living with this diagnosis. What was that? How was that, very life-altering?
Well, so that reminded me of you, though, that I was also diagnosed at the health center. I was having night sweats and just fatigue, and I went to the health center for my for student teaching. I had to get a physical, and I told them about my symptoms, and they were like, "Oh, it's probably just nothing, right? Just going to write me off." And then she started feeling up my neck, and she was like, "Oh no." And as soon as she pointed it out, like you could see the lump like coming off my neck. And so, so they sent me to another doctor to get checked. And, I'm going through biopsies and planning a surgery while I'm doing finals. And so I had my surgery like as soon as I was done with school pretty much, and then was doing like thyroid radiation is a little bit different it's very different actually from the radiation that y'all have experienced. It's a lot easier. But I was missing school in the fall, so I could do my radiation. And I just remember just trying to get through the rest of the year. And the second form of cancer that I was diagnosed with the following spring was when I was student teaching. And it was a soft tissue cancer, which normally does not have a good prognosis at all. And I was waiting and waiting to hear the results of what exactly came off of me when they did my surgery before they even knew exactly what they were dealing with. And, instead of focusing on trying to get through student teaching and get through to graduation, I was hoping to survive. So that's just how I ended my time in education.
We don't know what is causing, it's like you can't say because we just can't say yet, but we do know that high levels of these carcinogenic toxic chemicals were found in the building you all spent a lot of time in. Why do you think the building may have made you sick?
They found levels of toxins in it now. And from what I believe, there's ongoing reason for further testing of those toxic levels. They've closed Poe Hall down. When I was a psychology student, Poe Hall was my home base. You know, they've closed the building down. That's serious.
Yeah.
There's toxins being found, and so there's cause for concern.
And when they tested Poe Hall, the HVAC unit was not on. So everything had settled.
Been off.
And it had been off, yes, for several months. And I think that if the CDC comes in and they turn the HVAC unit back on and they allow it to circulate the way it did while we were all students or working there or whatever, they would get a more accurate reading of what we were actually inhaling.
Yeah.
Because whether you worked there or like I was only a student there for 2 years getting my master's degree, we inhaled whatever that carcinogen is that's in the air, you know? And Poe Hall is the education building. So whether you were getting your master's in secondary education or you were getting your, you know, whatever degree, that's where you had to go, was Poe Hall.
Yeah, you didn't have no choice.
Well, the other aspect of that is Yarborough Power Plant smokestack is right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the HVAC in Poe Hall is on top of the roof. So when that smokestack, whatever's emitting from that smokestack, which I have no idea, and the university hasn't said that there's any danger, but in addition to what's in the building, that smokestack has probably contributed as well, probably contributed to some other buildings on campus, but Poe is the tallest building there. So this environmental study that they're doing with this consulting firm is critical, and I agree. Turn the damn air conditioning on so we can figure out what it's like when we were sitting in there. And that's important.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've all had conversations about this individually, about how you feel the university's response is. Like, what are your latest thoughts on that? I mean, has their response added insult to injury? Are you happy with it? What do you think?
I personally feel like the university had an opportunity to do what was right, to come forward with the information that was originally, you know, realized last year, to sort of take a people first approach to handling this. And I think they missed the opportunity. They missed the boat on that. It's a little too late at this point. I mean, they obviously need to continue to comply. I'm glad to see that they have re-engaged with the CDC, but the lull there where they didn't do anything for a while that looked to be caring for the people who were in that building is unforgivable in my opinion.
Yeah.
There was, so when, you know, I had friends and former colleagues sending me their, you know, initial story, they were like, go to this website or send an email to these 2 people at NC State. They're tracking, you know, the cases. And so they may not know that, you know, that you were affected or potentially affected, because we don't know, right? So I did. I sent an email to those folks, and it had kind of, you know, what's your name? When were you diagnosed? When did you work in Poe Hall? All of those questions. And I replied, and no one ever replied back to me. Like, I sent, you know, the email saying who I am, when I worked there, what my diagnosis was, and when, 2 email addresses that I think were on the NC State website or maybe on your initial story, Keely. And there was no response, not even a thank you for letting us know, you know, we're sorry, we hope you are well, or just to even say that the email was received. I still have not received any type of response from that email, and that has been months.
You know, and I know that's ridiculous. In my rudimentary PCV research, you know, we've learned, I think I said some of you, 55,000 K through 12 schools were built with PCBs because of the time they were built. It's probably in a lot of buildings on NC State's campus, certainly other college campuses, municipal buildings. Is there a bigger picture situation here? Yes, Poe Hall is like the hot topic. The reports of cancer is overwhelming. But, you know, you're here as advocates too for other people. What would you like to see done in a bigger picture form? I mean, we have PSAs for cancer, we have PSAs for, you know, for smoking, for wearing sunscreen. Do we need something like this for these chemicals? I don't know if anyone, I can single somebody out if you want me to.
I think regular environmental testing for buildings constructed around that era that PCBs were used in construction would be helpful. I mean, we're already familiar as a public health topic, asbestos. I think it should be elevated to that. I mean, it's a probable carcinogen in humans. I think it makes sense to elevate that.
And when you have people coming into a building wearing hazmat suits and removing asbestos while there's classes going on and people teaching, you kind of know that there's something wrong in that building, and you need to let people know. You know what I mean? And that was happening in Poe Hall.
And I think, what does it say about how you care for your educators? You know, that you're just going to let it slide? That, I mean, of course, any building, any student building, whatever, on NC State campus is extremely concerning, but it just feels like educators can be slightly undervalued anyways. It seems turning a blind eye to this just kind of adds insult to injury.
Well, the university will say, we're trying to take a very methodical, conscientious approach. What's your response to that?
Let's see. Let's see your approach, because they haven't shown us much yet.
And I think my just, you know, response to that too is when you work in a building and you physically see people month after month, year after year, you know, and maybe unfortunately for the students it wasn't as apparent, you know, that it was happening, but for staff and faculty who come to the building every day, and you know, you see the people and you know the people that are battling and have been diagnosed, and to not pause and think about the uniqueness of, oh my gosh, there's so many people in this building. And you can see us every day coming to work. You hear about the people that died, you know, because of cancer. And of course, you know, there was no story about Poe Hall then. It's just, how come no one just paused to think about the number of staff that were being diagnosed?
You reported it to...
Yeah, I can't say I didn't. Yeah, I said something. I didn't do an official report. There was no documentation. It was more of a conversation with college, someone that was in college leadership, to say, because at the time there was someone that was diagnosed around 2020 that I was really close with, and then and other people as well. And so I just thought, this is weird. And so to bring it up, and then nobody else, I don't know what conversations were had, but I just feel like you could see the people in the building year after year after year, and to not just pause and think about, is this a coincidence or not? That's what's concerning. Yeah.
My background is around organizational culture and what NC State, as alumni anyway, has taught us is that there's this strength of the pack, right? And that the pack takes care of each other and you don't leave someone behind. And so let's see, if that's the culture, then here's the faces of some of the pack members that need to be talked to, need to be communicated with. We'll never be able to prove, in my opinion, we'll never be able to prove that PCBs in that building caused any of our cancers. But what we can prove, or what we can look into, is did they do due diligence? Did leadership at that university do due diligence in terms of OSHA testing, environmental testing? What did they know? When did they know it? And what did they do as a result of that? That's what we can do. And if you want to eat, sleep, and breathe and live your culture of the strength of the pack, then communicate that. That's all I'm asking. I don't want to get out pitchforks and torches at this point. It's too early. We don't have enough facts. We don't have enough data. But I think the big thing to do is to communicate what's being done, but also what's missing right now is that human element, right? And you're looking at alumni, you're looking at staff, you're looking at people that you said were important to the university. Okay. Tell us that we are.
Show us.
Show us.
You've all been fabulous. What am I not at? Like, is there any light bulbs that have gone off that you want to communicate? You've all been great about jumping in, so thank you. I know it's kind of a hodgepodge, but what have we not discussed that you want to talk about? Katie, you look like you.
No, I didn't have any specific thoughts.
Is there anything else, anything that we haven't discussed that any of you wanted to add? Or thought, you know, as we're driving into this interview, oh, I want to say that.
For me, again, speaking of torches and pitchforks, I think the leadership has a really rough road in the next few months and years. I really do. So let us help you. Talk to us. Engage us, create some kind of liaison. But the other thing is, please track us. Get the CDC in here and track our health. Let us give that important information to you so you can track us. I worry about the young men and women who were in that building in October before they closed it in November. How are they going to track them long term? My case is my case, but I really worry about the future. And quite honestly, I love this university. I really do love this university. And so let's work together to not let this sort of be a stain on our reputation as a fantastic education experience or a fantastic university that gives an outstanding education. I'm not giving the party line. I just don't want to skewer the leaders because what they have facing them is hard. But let us help you. Let us work with you. We're not against you. We really want to work with you. And I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to lower levels of anxiety and frustration and work together and really get good answers to this. Or recommendations. I mean, we as cancer patients would have wonderful recommendations to give to the leadership of the university. Talk to us. Please talk to us. Let us help you.
Madison, a lot of like the guidance too has been focused for the faculty, or just the faculty I think has been also the most vocal. Yeah. I haven't been able to talk to a lot of students. Some students, a lot of students also, it's not their place of work here, so they've left. What do you have to say for kind of, that bracket of people who studied in Poe Hall and are so young dealing with this?
I would say to, if you're not diagnosed, to kind of keep an eye out, go to your regular physicals. I think that's a good advice for everyone. But other than that, I would say just keep looking at the news and keep watching for updates and keep in touch with that.
My feelings on this since everything broke was that I, in a way, feel lucky to know my diagnosis. Because I can't imagine how tortured I would feel if I were someone who'd spent time in that building, worked in that building, studied in that building, and I don't have cancer yet. Or exactly, am I a ticking time bomb? And I know someone who is in that position, and she said she's had to stop keeping up with it because it's so stressful.
It causes a lot of anxiety.
But to Madison's point, people need to know what is available to them as far as early detection and screenings. Whether known PCB exposure will have insurance cover routine mammograms ahead of, being the chosen age for a first mammogram.
And to Madison's point, also to listen to your body. She thought, I'm just lazy. Or I thought, I'm just having night sweats. Like I don't, and so I guess telling these students to listen to your body and advocate for yourself.
Get your mammogram.
Yes. Well, I mean, even speaking about, sorry to cut you off, but even speaking about mammograms, I was 34 when I was diagnosed, so I was not at the age to be getting a mammogram. And so that's another piece. And so one thing that, from my journey is that I've told my family and my friends, do monthly, breast exams. I know I'm not here to educate, everybody on that, but it is important. And we've talked about the importance of early detection. And I know that can cause anxiety to think about filling your breast every month, but it really is important. And, you know, I was not checking myself every month or even every year, you know, in my 20s and my 30s. And luckily I had, you know, a symptom that caused me some alarm. And then I was like, let me just, you know, feel around. And so luckily I was able, you know, to catch it early. And so I know it brings a lot of anxiety, but the earlier you can, you know, you find it is better, and research says that. But again, and even with mammograms at 34, I had to write letters and submit additional documentation to my health insurance because they were not going to cover the mammograms that were required throughout my diagnosis. So I'm with that piece, and for, you know, I have friends that, and, you know, people that I care a lot about that have worked there, still work there. And I think about the students, faculty, and staff, and the mental health of, if you haven't been diagnosed, what are you thinking about every day? So I think in addition to knowing, you know, about POHAL, you know, what caused this, but how do you support, you know, even mentally the people that are just having to think about this every day? I think that's important as well.
And that's why, you know, the partnership between our faces and other faces in the university is important, because we can help the leaders to understand the anxiety, the stress, you know, the hoops that we had to jump through or couldn't jump through, depending on, you know, different diagnoses, but lower the sort of, I don't want there to be like an adversarial kind of mindset. It's more of a partnership. Let us help you, because those are things that a leader sitting in a building looking at data from a, you know, an environmental survey is not necessarily going to consider.
This will make a difference. You guys talking, putting a human to any statistic makes me care a heck of a lot more. So thank you all so much. Do you guys have everything you need? We kind of did the raising of the hands, but I'm going to just redo that. I'm sorry. Bear with me.
It's okay.
I was going to get it.
Okay. It'll just be an easy way from a storytelling standpoint to identify what everyone's in. Okay. So all the women in this room who were diagnosed with breast cancer, just give me a show of hands, for Hodgkin's lymphoma, 2 ovarian cancer, and thyroid, and Christy, what was the other one?
A soft tissue cancer called angiosarcoma.
Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry this is like, it's just a lot. But you were great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your